All right, everybody, today we are going to make our Scarecrow porch leaner. So if you got this as a kit, to do at home, this is an instruction video for all of you. The first thing you're going to do is unwrap your pieces that came with your door leaner. So I'm cutting out the plastic now for mine. We are going to use these pieces to lay them down on the board so that you can see where everything goes. So gather all your pieces together. You're going to need a pencil for this first step. So if you don't have one, go ahead and get one. You should have a pair of overall straps and 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, shoes, a hat brim, and a handkerchief, and a sunflower and 2 buttons. So what we're going to do first is we're going to lay this out on our board, place where everything should be. So put your shoes at the bottom. You may want to raise your shoes just a little tiny bit above the bottom, just so that they don't hit the floor or the ground where you're going to lean it up. Just a little tiny bit. And then this is the mouth. And let's see, the overalls come down a little bit more, right about there, I believe. And the mouth is right here where the scarf. So what you're going to do next is your scarf fits in this little hole here like this. So where the pointy part is, you're going to put that inside the overalls. That'll help you guide it on. And then you just want to make sure that all of your pieces are even with the board. Sorry, I just got to turn down the volume so it doesn't echo on you. So we may need to go down just a little bit more with these just to even everything out. And then you have the brim of the hat. So let me just show you this. Where there's little burn marks on the outside, this is the back of whatever you're doing. So you can tell, see the burn marks here? That's your nose. And your nose goes upwards like this, like a candy corn. Then your 2 eyes. Still think this needs to go down a little. These 2 pieces, the nose and the eyes and the mouth, you don't really need to have on the board beforehand. I mean, when we draw it out, but you just need to have them laid out so you can see where you want your scarf to be, your mouth to be, etc. Because it's probably a good 6 inches from the top where your hat should rest. And it goes a little like this. So measure it from the top to here, about 6 inches. So you want to lay your mouth out, pull your eyes down about 2 inches from the hat brim on this side, on the where it slants down. Approximately, it doesn't have to be exact. And then your eyes go like this when you put them on. We'll look at that after. And your mouth comes down about, I would say, 2 fingertips from your nose, right there. This is the brim of your hat. This is the scarf, and this is your overalls. And those are your shoes. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take a pencil and you're going to make a little line here of where you want this to be. So there's that. So this, in this section here, we're going to paint this tan, or more like a tan color so that we know. So you're going to outline the hat thing, the scarf, and then down here where the overalls go, and then down where the shoes go. So that way you know where everything's going to go, because we're not going to paint behind here. we're just going to paint the sides and the edges. So our brown's going to go this way. We're not going to really paint down here except for the blue and the orange and yellow. So your buttons are going to go here. Your sunflower is going to go up here on the brim. But we're going to do this step by step. It's going to go right about there. And then we're going to put some raffia on for hair. So we're going to take these pieces off now. And you can use paint cups right out of the cup if you want to, or if you want to scoop it out and put it on a plate to use it. I need to scoop one of them out because I have to add white to it. So first we're going to paint the blue color, and then we're going to paint the yellow color, and then we'll paint the skin color and then the hat color. So I'm going to take my blue paint and mix it with some white because the straight blue is not the color we want. We want it to be a little lighter than that. So we're going to use this blue paint to paint our legs, our pants, and the overalls. So we're going to put a little white in there. Let's mix that up and see what we like about this. Okay, I think this is good. So I put 2 squirts or 1 brush load in this. Let me just adjust the computer because I can still hear myself talking. Okay, page just online. So we're going to take our overalls. So this is our scarf. We're not going to need that yet. We don't need the buttons yet. And this is our scarf. So we're going to paint this first. I mean, our overalls. We're going to paint this first. And you can, if you have foam brushes, you can use foam brushes. If you have brushes, you can use whichever you like on the bigger parts. But when it comes to the buttons and stuff like that, we're going to use a makeup sponge. So I'm painting these blue. I'm holding them because I don't really want to lay them on the board. And if I move the door hanger, I mean the leaner out too much, it will get me all off track here. But you can move yours back and then do this in front of it, whatever you want to do. Once I get this blue on, I'm probably going to move the door hanger out of the way and do the other pieces. But I don't want to make this completely solid. I want it to be a little streaky so that, you know, where the dark blue is. So you can roll it over and take that off your brush. Or if you have a foam brush, just paint it on. But you also, if you want, you can just leave a little bit of the regular blue off to the side. So you can use it that way. So now I have the overalls painted. Just going to go back over it real quick. There's some darker blue here. I'm just going to rub it on, give it a little bit of a blue jean look. You can also go this way with the darker blue instead of side to side so that it's all the same. So you see how the darker blue shows up a little bit and gives it a little bit of distressed look. If you don't want to do this part, make it distressed, you don't have to. It's completely up to you. One coat should be sufficient, but if you find that the paint is sucking into the wood, you can always put another coat on. This one's holding up pretty well. So there's my distressed overalls. So we're going to set those aside. Now we're going to use this light blue for down here where the overalls would touch. So we're gonna just paint this. You can, if you have a foam brush, it would probably be easier than what I'm doing. But I generally paint with brushes at the studio. The reason I do that is because I want the brushes to be for the customers. Because a regular paintbrush I can clean, but the foam brushes, they don't clean up so well. And if you are using a regular brush, then just go ahead and make long strokes. You can go back and add more if you need to. Just saves you a little time. I'm going to put a lot of paint on my brush because I know I'm going to be spreading it out. So this is the bottom where the overalls are. And this is the only, besides the face area, this is really the only area that you need to paint on the board. The rest of the pieces are going to be on the shapes. Sorry guys, I'm tired. Now, if you have any pieces on your board that are raised up, you could just take your brush and knock them off like that. Or you can get a little sanding block and you can sand it down. But generally, when I do the shapes attached to the leaners, I don't really sand anything. So once you have the overalls painted, if you wanted to distress those again, you could, or you could just go with what's there. You may need just a tiny bit more paint. So I'll probably mix up a little bit more. But remember, this is wood, so you are going to see lines and, you know, stuff like that on your board, and that's okay. That's what you want. It's distressed, it's, you know, used, and you don't want to make it perfect because this is supposed to be a scarecrow. Now, if we were stenciling something on this board, definitely would want to make it nice and smooth and everything else. But this is just shapes on here, so you really don't have to sand it because you're not using any vinyl on it. If we were using vinyl, I would definitely sand this down and make it look a little better. But we want it to look rough and rugged. If you go a little bit below where the shoes are, that just keeps you from having to move them so far, because your shapes are going to sit there on the board. So now I need to paint the sides. And to make my life easier, I'm just going to put this underneath it and give it a little perch here. And I'm going to just go back and paint the sides with the brush. So in this part right here, I have a little bit of a crack there, and that's okay. I'm going to just keep going. Just get the paint in the crack and it'll blend in perfectly. Now on the other side, you can lean into it or you can turn it around. I'm just going to paint it like this. I'm not going to turn it around. All right, so then if you wanted to go back and put a little bit more of blue in here, you can do that, or you can also take a little bit of white and distress it, which I think I'm going to do. In just 1 second, the boards suck up a little bit of paint, so if you feel like you need to go back and get some of the white spots in there filled in, just go ahead and paint back over it. I'm just gonna make sure that all my side over here painted. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm just going to tap into that a little tiny bit, not a lot. I'm going to tap into that and then kind of bring some off my brush like this. So it's not a lot. And then I'm just going to take the white and randomly put it in here. Very lightly. It's not a lot. And you try not to blend it again. Like once you put it on, just leave it. I just blended that one in over there. Keep going. And then again, this is optional if you want to do it. Sometimes it's easier to wait for this to dry for a few minutes before you do this part, but again, that's up to you. If you want it to look more blended, you can do that. And I'm not going completely up and down, I'm just kind of randomly putting it on. And you can see it a little bit, but it's not dramatic. All right, so got that on. I just got to blend this up a little bit here. All right. So now what you're going to do, you have your overalls done, you have your pants done. What you're going to do next is you're going to color in this part, the tan color, because this is where the face is going to go. So I'm going to take my baby wipes out and I need them again. I usually, when I do the lighter colors, I go with a baby wipe and I just gently brush over the area I'm going to paint because it gets all the dirt off, and I'll show you in 1 minute. If you sit at Lowe's or Home Depot or a lumber store, wherever you get your stuff from, and it has a little bit of dirt on there and dust. So you just want to get that off. Down here, it doesn't really matter because those are the pants. But if you obviously see big chunks or dust or dirt on your board, you definitely want to wipe that up. So now we're going to take a little bit of our tan color. No, we have to do this orange and then this tan, but we're going to give that a minute to dry. I'm going to take a little bit of the tan color, probably 1 brush scoop or 1 sponge scoop. And then I'm going to take pretty much a little bit more than a little bit of white. So here's the tan white color. I'm going to make it look almost flesh tone, so I don't want it to be too dark. I guess a scarecrow would be a tan scarecrow, but I'm going to make it just like this. So now I'm going to take this color and I'm going to paint between here in the hat and here where the scarf goes. And it almost looks the same color of the board, but it looks a little bit lighter. And that was the goal we were going for. So we're going to just paint this area in. This is the scarf area, that's where it stops. I always just put it a little bit below in case I have to shift things around a little bit. And again, for where the hat rim is going to go, I just put it a little bit more above it, just like a half a brush or a foam thing, or maybe even just a quarter. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm really excited about the 2D board hangers because a lot of people look at door leaners, a lot of people look at them and say, oh, that's too hard, I can't do it. So when you have the shapes that you're adding on, it makes it a lot easier and a lot less intimidating. We have that color in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some on the side like we did before. Again, you can use your foam brush or you can use the paint brushes if you have some, or if you ordered some with your project. Get one side done. Do the other side the same way. You can also prop this up to do this part if you want to. And because this is so light, if you want to go back and do a second coat, you can. It's up to you. I'm just lightly doing a second coat because this is pine and it will suck in there. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and put this part down, and then I'm going to get the orange. I mean the yellow. I'm going to use the dark yellow and paint in the shirt first, and use orange for the stripes. So I'm putting the dark yellow on, deep yellow. Even though we don't really need to paint in this area, I'm going to, just in case I have to pull it around. You really just need to do it below the scarf. So when you're tracing it with the pencil, just put below the scarf down too. Because this is the top of the scarf up here, and this would be under the overalls. So just go ahead and paint all of that in. I'm going to avoid the blue for just a second, like I'm avoiding the tan up there, because I don't want to pull the yellow into that. I'm going to fill in the middle first. And again, you are going to see the pieces under the board. Luckily, this one had a knot here, but the knot is going to go under the scarf. So I'm not worried about that. And sometimes if you have a knot on one side, you may not have it on the other side. So you can just turn your board over and pick the prettier side. Almost done with the yellow here. And if your yellow does touch your blue a little bit, it's okay, because this is where the overalls are going to sit. So those little spaces that you missed or got crooked or whatever, don't worry about it. You're good, because it'll be covered up. Now I'm going to paint the sides here. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to paint the other side. Okay, so the sides are painted on both sides, and I think I got it all. Yep. And the whole yellow part is painted. So we need to let this dry for a few minutes before we put on the orange stripes. And the reason we need to do that is because it'll be all runny and messed up and muddy. So we're going to let that dry for a minute. And this kind of paint dries pretty quick, so it should be okay. So while we're doing that, we're going to start painting in some of our other pieces over here. And we are going to, so I'm just going to push this aside for a second so I can reach these. And then we're going to finish up with the brown spots, the brown pieces. I'm just getting a few more brushes. And we're going to use the yellow on the button. So we're going to need the yellow for two things. We need it for the buttons and then the outside of the sunflower. So I still have yellow on my brush to do the sunflower. And the thing is with these where they're cut, that is your guide to where you need to put your wood shape. So when you have stuff like that, you can generally paint over it and the line will still show. Yellow. You can use the brush you just used or the foam brush you just used for that. That way it goes on a little quicker, saves you a little time. I'll let that dry for a second. I'm definitely going to put a second coat on this just because these shapes, this type of wood sucks it up really good. Then I'm going to use the yellow on the buttons. Again, you want to look where the laser cut is. So this is the burn marks here, and there's no burn marks on that side. If you wanted to do your buttons brown, you could do that too, but it just kind of ties in the whole look. You can use your brush, but when you go over the holes of it, you probably have to go back and clean them out. So what I would suggest, because my paint is going in the holes, I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to clean this one out real quick. So I got the paint out of the holes. You can use your foam brush and then just wipe some of the extra paint off on the side, and then you can tap it on. If you tap it on, it doesn't generally get down in the holes. So what you're doing is you're just tapping it lightly. And then I always go back and I leave all my edges black as best as I can. So I go back and I take off the extra paint on the sides with a wet paper towel or a baby wipe. It doesn't have to be a baby wipe. And then take it back off my fingers so I can get more off. So that one's done. I'm going to put it over here to dry. And now I'm going to paint this one. Let me grab my chair. And go ahead and tap it on. And these you may want to do a second coat on. That's up to you if you don't want to see the grain as much as the grain through. I think it'll be okay though, because the sponge gives it a little bit more coverage. And then I'm going to set that one over to dry. Generally, I don't get a new foam brush. I just keep using the one I have. But if you don't want to do that, there is quite a few foam makeup sponges in your bag. But I always cut it off until I can't cut it off anymore, just to recycle, reuse. The next thing we're going to do is our eyes are black. Our mouth is black. And this is brown. And then the nose is orange and this is red. So we're going to do this in a couple of layers here. So I'm going to get rid of this piece. And I'm going to use some of the black. See if this is black. Let me just double check. Yep, this is black. So we're going to take this little spongy again, and we're going to take it and paint this black. Now for the eyes, you can see that the burn marks are on the back. So if you want to keep it black, they're not going to show through with the black paint, but if you were doing a lighter color, it would definitely show through. And sometimes you don't want to do it the other way because it's what you're going to need to do. It could be backwards or upside down if you did it that way. Not always, but if you did it that way. So now I'm going to take this sponge again and I'm going to tap on the eyeball here and get that all black. Do the other eye. So as you see here, I'm wiping the extra paint off so it doesn't overflow or not. The eyes don't have holes, but if they did, it would probably go down in the holes. So we're going to let that dry, let this dry. And just one more time to get the mouth. And again, you can see the burn marks on the back, so you want to turn it over. more on there. If you rubbed it on as well, you could do that, but I just like tapping it because it covers up more. And when you rub it on, there could be a good chance that it goes over the edge as well. And when you're doing little shapes like this that are very fragile and thin, you always want to keep them flat on the table just so you don't break them. So I got black on the mouth. So now we are going to take this piece and set it aside to dry. We're going to take our eyeballs and set them aside to dry. And again, as the black dries, it may suck into the wood. So if you need to do a second coat, just go back and do that. Okay, well, the red part for the scarf, I'm going to use a brush because it's a little bigger. Wiping off my fingers so I don't get yellow on everything. And this is the front and this is the back. Again, you have the burn marks here. That shows you it's the back. So I'm going to take the red paint, put it on a plate. And I don't want to lay it on my web project, so I'm going to do it over here. Put the red paint on the scarf first. Just the front side, don't have to do both sides. You can go up and down, side to side. I just generally follow the grain of the wood. So if the grain was going that way, I would go that way. This one's going down, so I'm going to go down. Takes just a minute to get everything on here. Almost done. So you can see the difference. This side's a little lighter, and then this side's a little darker. And that's because this is almost already dry, and it's just sucking into the wood. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do a second coat. Turn it back this way. I got to get it a little bit more in the picture here. There we go. Turn it back this way. All right, so this is all painted. So we're going to move this aside to let it dry. And now we're going to paint the middle of our sunflower. Let me just get this brush up here. So the middle of the sunflower is brown. Let me just find my brown. I thought I brought it over here. Nope, I did not. Let me just grab it and be right back. So if your brown's a little lighter, you can use that color. This one is the terracotta brown color, but I do have a darker brown color. To me, on the sample, this looks like a darker brown, so I'm not going to use the terracotta color. I'm going to use the darker brown. And I don't need a lot, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little dab right there. And this is the darker brown paint. It almost looks a little black, but you can see that it's brown. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to paint this that color. I'm just going to tap some off, or you can scrape it off. If you have a paper plate, you can do that. I'm going to sponge it on so this looks a little bit distressed or a little bit pixelated for the, looks like seeds. You don't have to make it so dark. If you want it to be lighter, you can also, I'll show you a trick to get it a little lighter if you want it lighter. So that's just one coat of brown. Then if you want it to be a little lighter, you can take a wet paper towel or a baby wipe and just go back over it and pull some of the paint off like it's stained. And see the difference in the color compared to the other one. And you're going to need your brown for the shoes and the hat piece. So if you want to have it dark brown, you can, or you can have it a little bit lighter. So because I want mine to be just regular brown, I'm going to take my makeup sponge here and I'm just going to glide it on here just like this. Just because we already have brown on this and it will work, and we don't need to mess up a whole nother brush. Now, because you are using the makeup sponge, you might get a little bit of a piece of the board or something on your sponge from the table. Just go ahead and wipe it off. It'll be all right. And again, this is wood, so it's going to show some of the grain of the wood, like right here, you see some of the grain right in this part. So you just, it's okay. You need just a little bit more to finish it. Well, that should be pretty well done. I'm just tapping this on a little bit. So there's that. You put that aside to let it dry. So on the brown for the hat and the shoes, I am going to use a brush just because it'll be easier. So what I'm going to do is slide this down a little bit more. This is our nose. We still got to do that. This is where the brown will be on the board. So I need just a little bit more brown. And then I'm going to use this to paint all of this right here. So here's my line, and I'm just going to put it right on the line. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because then that way, if you mistakenly made yours a little higher than you wanted, you could always have that little bit of buffer. And you see, this is the way the grain of the wood's going. So when I paint it on, it's going with the grain. And I'm not worrying if this is not perfect or It's not all filled in. And the reason I'm not worried about that is because you don't want it to be perfect. You want it to be more distressed. You're also going to do your sides and your top. And the bottom and the top here, because it's where the wood was cut, you may need to do more of like a pouncing on it to get it to fill into the cracks here, the holes. And this board's not crooked, it's my table. It's a folding table, so that's why you see it moving. Then I'm just going to scoot it down a little bit so I don't have to bend my arm so crooked. And I'm going to paint this part. Almost done. And again, you may have to pounce on it just a little bit to get it to show up. Maybe wipe some here to raise it up a little bit. That generally makes it a little easier for your arm and your back if you raise it up just a little bit because you're not twisting your hand as much. You may have to go back and forth just to get all those little holes filled in or pounce it on like this. So this is the end that is a little bit rough because that's where it was cut. Right. I'm just going to go back, see if I can blend some of this in. I'm just doing that mark. Now I need to do the other side. If I wasn't doing this on camera, I would be turning the board back and forth, but because we're doing it for a video, I'm not going to do that. All right, so now for the shoes, if you feel like you don't want the dark brown and you want to make it just a little lighter, you can take a little bit of this color that you had already mixed up for the face, and you can just put some in the brown color. Just kind of separates it a little. So I'm going to take a little scoop of this skin color and just mix it in with the brown, just to make it a little bit lighter. It's not a big difference, but it's a little bit of a difference. It's like a milk chocolate color. So I'm going to go ahead and brush this on, just back and forth like this. Or you can go up and down like this, whatever's easier for you. This might be easier doing it this way, just so you get less around the edges. Paint this on. I do one side at a time so I can hold it. So now I got a little bit over here, so I'm going to take my damp paper towel or baby wipe and just get it off. If it was on the bottom, I wouldn't care because that you're not going to see, but this top part is going to touch your overall, so you may want to just get it off. And I just hold it on the outside edges like this when I'm holding it. That way I don't get my fingerprints all in it, which wouldn't be. I would probably do that. Wouldn't you just have a little piece of DNA on your project? All right, so this is the shoes. So I'm taking the lighter side and just going back and putting a little bit of striping in it to make it look more distressed. As you can see they're not perfect, and that's exactly what we want. So now I'm just going to take this, wipe off the extra. And then we're going to let these dry. So while we're letting all that stuff dry, what we're going to do is we're going to make lines for our orange part of our overalls. And if you have foam brushes, you may find them easier to do this part, or you may not. So we are going to go ahead and pull this down. We're going to paint our nose in just a second, but I have a ruler here, and it doesn't have to be this long. It's just what I had handy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start up here at the top where the scarf is supposed to be, and I'm going to make a stripe like this and a stripe on the other side. And then I'm going to do another one right about here. So this is about 2.5 inches. I should make it 2 inches apart. So it's about 2 inches apart. So you could take your ruler and lay it here and just make a little nook there. And just kind of eyeball it to make sure you got it the same width here and here. That's another stripe. And then again, another 2 inches. And when I put the ruler down, I'm putting it on the other to the right of the mark that I made. Okay, so this part right here is going to be even with the overalls. So it's going to line up just there. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. My first one didn't. Okay, so we have our stripes going this way. So now we're going to take this ruler and we're going to go the opposite way. This we're going to do about 2 inches. And that would be here. Go again. And then one more time. So here, 2 inches. Okay, so that's the basic. These are bigger diamonds than the plaid on there, but the first one I didn't really like how big it was. But now I'm going to go here and do the 2 inches. And I'm going to put another line here to fill in this part. Right, little mark. Oh, I can't see the mark I made, so I'm going to go back into the middle, and I'm going to do. This is actually 2.5. I think I did it right here. So we're going to make that. And now you can see the diamonds are getting smaller. I'm going to do the 2 inches here. So this is that, and then this one is the one that we just put on. So we're going to go above that. And if you want to freehand this, you can. That is totally up to you. That's the closest there. So I'm going to go in the diamond and on this part and go 2 inches here. If it doesn't look right and it looks too crowded, you can always skip up a little bit more. I don't like the way that one looks. Let's see here. These ones I like. I just need to do another one here. I think that will be better because that crosses over here. What we need to do is go here and leave this way. Much better. It's a little wobbly, but we'll correct it with the paintbrush. And then we're going to do it down here, where this is the last one, but that's going to look crazy. So what we're going to do is kind of just go for it. Too tight. Here. I like this part down here. Just got to figure out how to get it in the middle part, or just not do it. Here I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to do a mark here, maybe a mark here. All right, I'm going to leave it like that because I like the way it looks. And then I am going to go ahead and get my orange paint. And this part I am going to use a sponge for. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want it to be a little bit like dry brushed on. Fine brush. So this is your smaller brush in your kit. This is the small brush that looks like this. And you're going to use that here. I'm going to take a little bit of orange. I'm going to wipe some off. I'm going to tap it off on my napkin here, just like that. And now I'm going to follow those pencil marks. So we're going to go this way. But see how it's not all filled in? That's okay. I want to have that look. Might need to go a little bit further than that. I need to go like down this way. And if it goes over the line a little bit, that's all right too. Don't want it to be perfect. Remember, this is a scarecrow that could be a little bit scraggly looking. All right, then I'm going to go to this one and do this one. So as you can see, I'm going over the line just a little bit in certain spots, and that's okay. And then you're going to go down here, take some off. You don't want to have your brush super full. Now, if you have to have it completely perfect and straight, you may want to use a paintbrush. Foam brushes do not make it perfect and straight. This one here. And remember, the overalls are going to cover up this part, so if you do get a little in the blue, it's not going to hurt anything. But it might even be good because if the overalls, you know, they need to touch something. Okay, so now I'm going to go back up here, and this line I didn't make the other side of, but I'm going to just keep it like it is. And I'm going to go this way down just a little bit, or up a little bit, whatever you need to do, and then just pull it down. And the reason I did that was because the scarf is going to cover this part up. Again, if you go over a little bit, it's okay. I'm going to do this way. And then there's another one over here. Right there. And then there's another one here. If you don't want to see your pencil lines, if you don't like that, you can mix just a little bit of white in here as well into this paint. Okay, and then we're going to go back down here and do this line. But as you can see, it looks a little dry brushed on the edges, and that's good. That's fine. Like I said, you don't want to make it too perfect because it will just look funny. Okay, do this one here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So we're going to let that dry for a minute. Then you can take this foam brush that you just used, and remember, this is the front, this is the back, and this is the front. And you can just take the whole thing and paint the whole nose orange. You do not have to worry about the lines because you're going to still be able to see them. We're going to use a marker or a fine brush to get those little details. The reason I like to use a marker is because it makes my life a lot easier. So go ahead and hold this as best as you can and paint that. So now we're going to need to let that dry. You don't want to use the marker on wet paint because it will definitely mess it up. Okay, so we're done with the orange. We're going to take that and put that aside. We're done with the sunflower. So while we're letting all this other stuff dry, what we're going to do is glue on our top pieces onto our little pieces. Let me grab my glue. I'm going to turn my little fan on over here. You don't have to use this if you want to take your time and do it, but since I'm on a little bit of a schedule, I'm going to just turn this on. Maybe. Plugged in. There we go. It's just a little loose. So I'm going to shine it over to where my orange is. I don't know if you can see the fan in there. So the glue, if I didn't give you glue, I recommend this glue, which is Type On Quick and Thick for this project. I'm going to move this plate out of my way. I'm going to scoot this back up so you can see it better. Okay, I'm just going to pull my fan over a little closer so this will dry. And you can also use a blow dryer to do this. You don't need to use a fan if you have one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my circle of my sunflower, move this down just a little bit more, my circle of my sunflower, and put this on. This will also give this a few minutes to set up before I have to pick it up to put it on the main board. So let me put that right there. Just center it on my circle. And it should be perfectly lined up, like from where you're as close as you can get it. So I'll put that there. Now I'm going to take my buttons and put them on my overalls. Your overalls go like this. The buttons are going to go here. Just move this over. And you just want to avoid those little holes there. And I put my buttons like this. With the line, the dots side across. They're already side by side. Okay. So there's those. We're just waiting for our orange to dry a little bit more. We don't need it all to be dry because we can work around it. I'm going to take my white lip glue off. That's what I'm doing. And while we're doing that, the nose is dry. We'll have to touch it and see. Wasn't my glue. Needs another minute. So I'm going to put it there in front of the fan. So while we're doing that, we are going to go ahead and just double check our lines, see if we have anything that we want to fix up. And if you don't want to do lines with a pencil, you can also use a piece of chalk, piece of white chalk, and then it'll come right off afterwards, whatever you'd like to do. We are going to do some detailing. I just have to write something on the back of this real quick. Oh, back here. So if this is dry, you can tap on it to see. And if it's dry, what you want to do is take a Sharpie or paint pen, whatever you have available, and you just take that and you color on the lines here. I'll show you in just one second. Just like that. Okay, so there's all the lines colored in with the marker. The marker just makes your life a little bit easier. Okay, so our scarf also has some accents with the black. So we're going to grab that. I'm going to just set these aside. Those have the glue on them. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your, if you're using a black paint pen, whatever you want to use. So there's some accents around the scarf, and you don't really need to make them all the way across. You don't need to make it continuous. You just kind of want to give them little wispies in the shape around the edges. And if you want to do little polka dots, you can do that too. I like polka dotting stuff, so I make little polka dots as well. I just think it gives it a little cute touch. All right. So I did that. Now on the shoes, you have a little bit of accenting as well. So they're going to go on this way. And goes just kind of like that. It's a highlight. And then for the bottom of the jeans here, let me move these aside. This is where you're going to probably need the ruler one more time. Get your line of pretty good shape. So the board is 9. So halfway would be, this is a little bit more than halfway, so it would be closer to 4.5. Just put a little mark there to mark it, because your line for your overalls isn't going to come all the way down. So just to be correct, I'm going to go over here, move it down to where the shoes are, and I'm going to do 4.5 here, so we have a guide. So we're going to take this marker, if you guys can see, we'll move it up a little bit more. Okay. You're going to take this, lay it down next to where your guides are, or on top of your guides. And you're just going to use this marker from right about here to right about there, like that. So that is the seam of your overalls. Now you can take it, and your overalls are going to hit here, but you can go under, and you're going to also make those little lines down this way. And again, they don't have to be perfect. You kind of want them to look a little distressed. And then it goes, if once you put your shoes down, if you want to go around that too, you can. And then we are going to use a little bit of white paint and a smaller brush. And we're going to use this for our sunflower. So if you want to put lines out on your sunflower, you can. What we're going to do is we're just going to take this from the middle and go like that, like every other piece. So 1, 2. And again, if this runs out of paint, that's okay too. It's just an accent on your sunflower, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm kind of pulling it in a circle, as you see here, kind of making a little arched. You want to do a light touch. There you go. So you can see it's just a little accent right through there. And that's going to go on top of your scarf. But because this is going to go that way, you have to do the scarf first. So I'm going to take the overalls and lay them down here. And I'm going to take my scarf and put it down here just to make sure everything's lined up. It's like a little jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so I misjudged here. Because we don't want that orange to show. So I'm going to push that up, put this back. And on this part down here, I'm just going to take the blue and cover it up because I must have moved something somewhere. Because the blue is going to cover a little bit better than the beige. Get my brush. I'm going to put a little blue on here. I'm going to scoop in a little white. Just make it about the same color. And you should be able to do that because it's still on your plate and you could color match it. I'm going to take that and I'm going to cover up down here right where the overalls are. So I'm going to just take this and pull this across. Do it a couple of times. So it's nice and covered. And it should dry to the same exact color. So we're just going to see here. So when you make this line here, you want to make your line on the top of this too, so you know how much room you made. I think I didn't do that this time. And you want to make sure you get it over the edge too, inside. Just give it a minute to dry and then you can put a second coat on it. Giving it a second to dry. The fan's helping dry it. You probably will need 2 coats if you make that mistake. Just blend this together a little bit. It doesn't look like one piece here. A piece of dried up paint there. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe my brush off because it got a little orange on it. I have to let this dry for just a second so I can put another coat on it. It doesn't pick up the paint. Giving a little bit more distressed look here. So that's going to dry for just a second. I'm going to put another really thin coat on there. While that's drying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hat on. I'll lift the blue somewhere. I need this piece here. This piece is going to go across this way. At least that one worked out, but I didn't paint the sides brown here, so I'm going to go back and do that. Just have to get the light brown out of here. As much as I can over there. It's going to be on the sides, so it's not going to be really prominent anyways. Take this dark brown and just paint the side where the hat is, the brim of the hat. The reason I'm doing it on the side, just so it, when you're looking at it from the side view, it goes that way. All right, we'll give that a second to dry. Here's the lid. So when you rearrange this so that it works, what you want to do is you want to go back and put blue on the sides where you had to correct it. So right on the sides here where you moved your overalls up, you just want to go in and correct that. You don't need to go all the way down. But I do need to make this little stripe here that I messed up on a little bit more blended into the other part. Now, because now it looks like I just did a line across. I did at first, but I just want to make sure that it's blended together a little bit more. And if you want to treat this for the outdoors, you can get a can of non-yellowing polyurethane and you can spray the whole board. If it's going to be in the elements, if it's not going to be in the elements, then you don't really have to worry about that part, but it's up to you, whatever you want to do. I just try to get this completely lined up here. That being off. Start this off a little bit. So this must be over too much. One side or the other is over too much. So there we go. Now it's all lined up. So I'm going to take the blue and fix the sides here where the yellow is. So that your overalls are the same as your board on each side. While that's drying for a second, we're going to go ahead and glue our hat down. We already fixed the sides of that. As you can see here, I'm not putting a ton of paint on, but I'm putting on enough to hold it. Across here. However, we need to put the hair in, so give me 1 second. Almost forgot about that. You're going to take your raffia that you have in your kit, if you have the kit, and you're going to pull some out. And at first, it looks a little crazy, but it will work out. I just make sure that if it's looped around, I unloop it. And probably drop some on the floor here. And if you have a staple gun or a stapler or anything that you can hold this down with, go ahead and use it. But you don't need to if you don't have one. You can just use a regular house staple as well if you don't need a full staple gun. I'm going to put it right here in the middle. I'm going to put glue on it along with the staple. And if you don't have a staple gun, you can just do the glue and put something on it to dry. So I'm going to put the glue right here in the middle, like this, and then I'm going to put the hair underneath it like this. And you're going to probably have to trim it because this is really long. What I'm going to do first is just twist it real quick because the staple gun will reach around that. Sure, you can trim it afterwards. You don't have to worry about how long the sides are. And then I'm going to staple it right in the middle with my staple gun like this to hold it down. All right. So it may not get all the pieces, but that's okay. You just want to get it down, and then I untwist it so that when I put the hat on, it's not too bulky. All right, and we're going to put the hat on right over all of this. Just like that. And I'm just gonna, sure, I'm using the camera as my guide here. And I'm gonna put something heavy on this to help it stick. I'm gonna pull this around just a little on the sides so it'll come down to the sides. It's not sticking out like ears. And if you have to roll it to get it to come down evenly, you can do that. Don't want to see it. You can always trim anything off that's there. So now I'm going to put something heavy on this. I'm going to use a paint bottle. If you have a 2-liter soda or a gallon of water, that'll work as well. You just want to make sure that the bottom of your bottle is not, it doesn't have anything on it. So go ahead and put this down. If you have a brad nail gun at home, you can also use that to nail it down. I'm going to go ahead and just use the bottle because not everybody has a brad nail gun. Good. Or you can just use regular little baby nails. You don't have to use a brad nail gun. You can use just little tiny baby nails like you use for picture hangers and stuff. So now I'm going to trim its hair, take off this extra. And pull it around here. Make this side about the same length. Right. Now, if you're going to spray it, you might want to wait to put your raffia on and the hat piece on until after you spray it. That's up to you. So this side and this side, are they even? No. Need a little bit more. I know this is blocking our view. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my brad nail gun. I'm going to nail that down. Just to let you know, this is going to be a little loud. So I'm going to just put this one right here because this is where the sunflower is going to be. And then I'm going to put another one right here. So that holds it down to keep it from moving as well. But if you don't have a nail brad gun, you can always just do the glue and just let it sit for a few minutes. So I'm going to put this. Oh, so there's that. So now we're going to take our sunflower and put some glue on that. I'm going to put it right there, right on the edge of the hat. That will stick because there's no anything under that. There's nothing under that. Okay, so now we're going to take our scarf and put some glue on the back of that. As you can see here, I don't put a ton, but I put enough to make it stick. I try to get as close to the edge as I can. If it does seep out from under the edges, you can always, it dries clear, so it should be good. So I'm going to get this to line up on the edges here. There we go. And then I'm going to fix my overalls so that they're touching on both sides here. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the back of that. And when you do the pieces on top, you just want to give it a minute because you want the buttons and the flower piece to dry. Okay. Put this back together here. Okay, and again, you may want to put something heavy on here to just make the glue stick together. And I'm going to go back and do that in just a minute so I can show you how it all goes together. And then you're going to come down to the bottom where the shoes are. And I always put the glue on the back of the shape just because then I don't have to worry about if I'm getting the glue in the right place. Go through here, turn it over. Oh, I did that too. Bummer. What was I thinking? So I need to fill this in a little bit more glue. Guess I misguided everything. So I'm just going to mix up some more of the blue and white. Blend these together to get the same color. I'm not going to do all of the sides blue because I want the shoes to look like they belong down there. So I'm just going to put this bottom part blue. I thought I put the circle here. I'm just taking some of the wet paint and going up so it doesn't look like a complete line here. And where the line is touching the other part, I'm just going to blend it up. So I'm just going to go down about, when I put the shoes on, let's see. It's just where the shoes are, so I'm going to go a little bit down. Probably an inch on the side. And then I'm going to put brown on the other part. Okay. Hopefully that's my last mistake. So because I'm trying to have you see everything, I'm going to go ahead and broad nail these down so that the glue sticks. So I should have probably done it before I put the button on. I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to put one here. Uh-oh. I'm either out of staples or my battery's going to dead. I'm going to take this out, charge it on the charger for a second. I'm going to give it a minute to charge up some so I can just put a few more on there. So in the meantime, I'm going to have to put something heavy on here so the glue doesn't dry above it. So I'm going to push this down here. There we go. And then that one should be all right. So now I'm going to take my shoes and I'm going to put a little bit more glue on them. Just because I think this dried out a little bit. And I need to put just a little bit of brown on each side here. I'm using some more brown paint. I'm going to go in and just fill in that part where the shoes are going to be. And I'm going to do the bottom with the brown. And if you forget to do this part, you can always go back and do it again after it's dry. All right. Now I'm going to glue it, and it goes the circle side up. I'm going to put it just a smidge away from the bottom. Make it flush with the board so when you have it out, it doesn't pop off. And that needs a little bit of weight on it too, just because my table is not straight and I don't know if that's going to affect it or not. We don't want it to raise up. Okay, so now we're going to come up and do our face. So what I do is I lay it all out first. So here's your mouth. Here's your eyes. And then here's the nose. So I just want to make sure it looks okay before I put it all together. The nose, top of the nose, the bottom of the nose, and the mouth are almost like right between the eyes, and then about even with the mouth. And the eyes are kind of at an angle here. I think that I have to look in the camera to see if that's straight. It's about straight. And this glue will move for a minute. So if you put it down and it doesn't look right, you can move it for a few minutes. And then just push it down where you want it. And if some comes out the side, it does dry clear, so you should be okay. And then a little glue on the nose. Put a little on the mouth. When I do the mouthpiece, I just kind of squeeze a little bit out and lightly glide it over because you don't want too much coming out the edges. Make sure I get the smile part so it sticks. So I put this down, and again, it's probably about even with the mouth here. And it is a little crooked, not much, but it doesn't sit perfectly right because it only has 3 pieces on it. There we go. And then again, if you want to put something heavy on it to hold it down until it dries a little bit more, you can. I kind of do that with the little pieces just because I want to make sure they're sticking all the way across. So I just wiped up a little bit of extra glue that was on there. You just want to make sure you have a clean part of baby wipe or towel. You don't want it to be all with paint on it. I don't get all of the glue off, but if I have like a big part, I try to get some of it off. All right, so there you go. That's your scarecrow with a bunch of stuff sitting on it. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed learning how to do this. And if you need any help, please feel free to call me, text me, or email me, whatever works best for you. Thank you. Have a good night.